And welcome to this week's edition of the 941 Sports Zone. I'm John Mussone here with Venice City head football coach John Peacock. And Coach, football.
I like long walks on the beach. I enjoy a nice.
You like soft rock, yacht rock?
I enjoy cuddling.
There you go.
So we're a different setup tonight here. We look like we're speed dating here.
Yeah, we're on a little bit of a different spot here. But we adapt. Francis is good about getting us in the right spot, making us look as good as he can. And
until the season, because we didn't have our spot. We show up this packed.
We're in bogeys tonight, not Douglas Jeep. And we appreciate Douglas Jeep being our sponsor.
It was well packed because everyone was in the parking lot cheering us for beating Riverview. Patting us on the back.
We came out and we said, "Oh my goodness, we're not in the same spot for the coaching show and the podcast this time of the year."
I don't know which camera, how to look at the cameras.
Listen, you're going to get back of your head shots. You're going to get all kinds of stuff tonight. So we'll see how it works out. But again, football's in the air. Football really takes the wind out of every other thing that's going on right now. You got hockey, you got basketball, you've got other things. But right now, it's football, and of course. We are football people in so many ways. Obviously, you way more than me. But I'd say that right now in this area, the 941 Sports Zone area, it's high school football that's taken the lead.
Yeah, I've got 3 teams in. I don't think we've had that many teams.
We haven't. I know that for sure because I think
has anyone ever played in the last 8 years?
I think we've been the lone state semifinalists except for maybe one more other time. I can't remember. I thought maybe Palmetto. But I may be wrong about that.
You're right. Palmetto, they played Central.
Okay.
And they lost. That was.
Yeah, and Central came up here to play them, I want to say, too.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And that's before, and they weren't ranked.
It was like 2019.
Right, and they were like 6A and we were 7A, and that's why we didn't play, or 8A and 6A.
Right, no, they were a class below, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what happened there. But no, you got Venice versus DeLand. You've got Booker at Cocoa. And Cardinal Mooney hosting the North Florida Eagles.
Florida Christian.
Is that what it is, Christian? Yeah, okay. So they're again, matchups are there.
These Catholic, one of them.
Yeah, well, these teams right now, like I said, if you're in the Final Four, I don't care how you got there. You're either a hot team coming through, or you're good. But you got to be good. You don't luck your way in a semifinal. You might have an upset early or do something like that, but you're not going to luck your way through the playoffs.
Probably both.
Yeah. So with that, so begin our conversation. First, we'll talk about Josh Hunter was on last week, and I would say Josh normally is pretty reserved. We just call him reserved, quiet guy.
Yeah.
But he came
weird
in.
Maybe.
But he did a good job. I mean, he's a great. And I said he'll be back. I'm sure of it. He's a plethora of information, football mind.
I know he would be better at all the other stuff. The other sports.
Right.
Than I would.
He follows it well. So good job by Josh. Appreciate him being here. But this week you and I are back together doing this. And again, let's start where we just finished with the coaches show, which is Venice playing DeLand at home, Powell Davis Stadium, 7:30. Big matchup. Again, a coach that you really respect on the other side of the field. Give us a little rundown of what we might expect on Friday night.
Well. As you said, Rick Darlington is one of the coaches that I really do respect a lot in this business, and I can't remember when I met him. I met him when I was assistant.
Okay. At a clinic or something like that.
Yeah, like years and years ago. Like maybe like when second, third year coaching, and I think I was running the weight room for Coach Coleman, and I sat down and just tried to pick his brain on everything I could because everything he was saying, I was like, I love that. And it was just toughness. It was all toughness, like old school stuff, probably like on the edge of like, you probably shouldn't do that.
Right.
And I'm not a person that likes living the edge, at all, but I kind of like that he does,
Right.
So I was like, man, I really like what this guy's saying. And even now, even today, I'll pick the phone up and pick his brain.
I think a lot of people don't. This kind of real quick. People don't realize that in the coaching fraternity or community, whatever you want to call it, there is a little bit of talking amongst the coaches.
I mean, I think most people, I think most people are in the business for the right reasons, and I always say, my logo or my whatever I say while I'm doing, I'm here to help young men get to where they want to be.
Right.
That's all. I'm just helping you steer your car correctly and get on the right path. And help you get to where you want to be. Now, sometimes, that takes a lot of tough love because, people want to do stuff. People want to, hey, I want to be a Division I football player, but, I also want to go over here. I also want to drink. I also want to smoke dope. I also don't want to do my homework.
Right.
And sometimes, that gets in the way of coming over here. So I always tell them, one thing I say is you're either going to have to change your habits or change your goals.
Right.
Because they ain't mixing right now.
No, because
your habits aren't reflecting what you want to do.
And then, and I always say this about, people say about, oh, my son played football and he didn't get a scholarship. No, the football in itself is a life lesson.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you want to see, it sounds cliche, but it is a life lesson.
Oh, that's another thing. There's always, coach, I don't want to play. I don't want to play because I'm not going to be able to play in college. I'm like, well, you're not in college. You're in high school.
Right.
I always wonder, do the college kids go to their coach and say, hey, coach, I don't want to play anymore because I'm not going to go pro?
Makes no sense.
And do the pros go to their coach and say, coach, I don't want to play anymore because I'm not going to be in the Hall of Fame?
And working, even so, they say, well, how does it apply? I can tell you this.
Live where your feet are.
Right. If you go to college, you get a degree or whatever it may be. You don't play football, but you were a football player back in high school.
Right.
A lot of corporations want that guy because they know you're a worker from that point, from that perspective. At least in some capacity, you've learned teamwork.
Right.
You've learned all of these things that people take for granted. But when you really learn it and learn how it works, and then you start to see success from it. It propels you, and that can be applied in so many other arenas. And I think people sort of really feel short of that. So, again, like you said, you're talking to Rick Darlington, and it may be just because these two guys are trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
We're in different colors, or actually they're green and white too. But
well, he told me when he came back because he's taken a journey from Popka. Well, actually, he graduated from Lakeland.
Okay.
I think he played football at
started.
I think he might have played for Castle. I'm not 100%, but I want to say he graduated from Lakeland.
Okay.
And he was a head coach. He also is good friends with Trapani.
Okay.
And they were I think they were college roommates.
There you go.
Okay.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if this is factual or not.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but anyway, so he's head coach at Apopka. Then he goes and takes the head coaching job at Valdosta, which is one of the premier high school coaching jobs in the country.
Yes, indeed.
And then he goes from there back to Apopka, wins one or two more state championships. Then he leaves and goes to Alabama, and then he came back to DeLand. So when he came back to DeLand, I said, "What are you doing? Why are you coming back to DeLand?
Right.
Like you just went to Alabama, you're getting paid, and why are you coming back?" He said, "Oh, I'm coming back because we're in your class." And I said, "Oh, okay." Well, then I mentioned that the other day. I said, "I guess you weren't lying when you came back because you're in our class because now you're going to be coming down to play us." So, he acted like he didn't remember he said that, but he did say that. So.
And we've talked a little bit about this, or actually a lot about it, that they run the single wing offense, which everybody has differing versions of what they think it is. And compared to what it actually is.
You come Friday night, you're going to see what it is.
So what it actually is not what you think it's going to be when you see what they do with their offense.
And a lot of people in our town, the late Bob Welch, who was a long-time Pop Warner coach here, ran the single wing. But I promise you, it will not look like what it looks like Friday night.
It's complicated. It's going to make your defense play discipline, like you said. So there's a lot of things that go along with it to try to defend a very, very innovative offense.
Yeah, and Darlington is like the Hal Mummy of the run and shoot. He's the
single wing guy.
He replaced Pop Warner. Pop Warner passed away. Then Rick Darlington showed up and carried on the wing T offense. Not the wing T. I'm sorry, the single wing.
You know it's a good offense when Coach Shannon looks not getting any sleep and loses 10 pounds before the game because he's
and defense is practicing lowering offense.
you know it's something.
When I'm sitting here like, all right, when are we going to finish? Because we're practice separate. And
right.
Usually they're over there doing tackling drills, trying to fill some space because we're going.
Right.
And the last 2 days I've been sitting there like, all right, what are we doing? Are we going to be off the field here? And yeah, so it is complicated. And one of the hard things is try to emulate it with your scout team.
Yeah.
It's nearly impossible. And but they're going to have the same problem with us.
Yeah, you keep replicating the speed. I think the only team who really embraced trying to get used to our tempo was Cardinal Gibbons. I mean, they actually they were talking.
They said
to
they
us
worked on it for a year.
Yeah. And they said, guess what? Now we're never going to not do that because it made them prepared for everybody else with their conditioning and their offseason.
Well, I think why they did it for a year is because we were supposed to open the season with them.
That's right.
And so they said they worked on it all summer, and then the hurricane pushed it back to week 7, and they continued to do that for 10 minutes a day. They said through that season, they said it helped them. I think they won a state championship that year.
They did. Matter of fact, they were the day before us with their state championship.
We both won it, right?
Both won it. Yes. So that was, but again, it is hard to get that tempo, used to that tempo. Even when you think you've gone fast enough or done what you've done, it's really not that way. It's hard to. And we even as broadcasters and fans and everything else. I mean, there's times like you think you got a second to look down, to jot something down or talk to somebody for a second, and you look up, you're like, oh, they ran a play, that kind of thing. So there's a lot to be said about that.
It's going to be it's going to be a game to which what defense can come up with the most stops. I think because obviously they're a very tough team to defend. You to be extremely disciplined on defense to stop them, and on top of that, like we said, like they have some really good players. Like their I know the single wing doesn't have a quarterback. I think they call it the fullback, but they have a true guy back there that could be a legitimate quarterback in a spread offense or any other offense. He's a big guy that runs real well. He's a dual threat guy and can throw it. He's thrown for 1,000 and rushed for 1,000 this year, and they got two speedy, what they call, one's a wide receiver and one's a wing back.
Right.
See, I've been studying this stuff.
Right. You have to.
For 3 years, because I don't know if you remember, when 2021 we were scared to death. Well, we thought we had Treasure Coast first. Right.
And
they
run it.
Apopka beat Treasure Coast, and then we ended up having Apopka. But I think Treasure Coast was more – they were more engulfed in the single wing.
Did more traditionally what you would expect,
Other than, Apopka did do it, but they weren't – I don't think they were 100% in. You know what I'm saying?
They weren't married to the whole process. They were running some other stuff. Yeah, I think you're right.
But this team is they're there to be the real deal as far as running that offense. And if anyone wants to see what it looks like, you come see what it looks like. Because I'm telling you, I'm watching film and the ball's going around the right end, and I got to rewind it. So how the heck did that ball just get there? So I got to rewind it. This guy took it. He spun around, and when he spun around, he hit it at this guy. And then he kept spinning so he could lead the reverse to this guy. It's just nuts, And then they'll snap it to the fullback. That's a yard from the line of scrimmage, lined up behind the guard, and he just kind of reaches his hand out and catches the ball. It's just like that's. To me, I would be scared to death to do that. And I'm scared to death to run the option.
Somebody said, I said. There's variations of it, like Naples doesn't run anything like that, but they line up real close to the line of scrimmage and quick handoffs.
Split back veer.
Right. Yeah. And so there's a bit of that kind of concept.
That's a little different, but
it's got some
a lot more people run that, and it's a lot simpler to understand. And obviously you can obviously see where the ball is, and it's not. It's more of like, hey, I'm going to hand this ball off, and it's going to be, on your sideline scrimmage, and a quarter of the time it usually is.
Right.
So that's a little different too. And they do a nice job as that as well. But this is just going to be. It's totally different. It's not the wing tee.
No.
It's a single wing, and it's totally different. I actually asked Coach Darlington to share some stuff with me, probably 5 years ago, and he said, no, I won't do it.
Yeah.
I don't want people to know what I do.
This is what mine.
But he shared it with Treasure Coast, so he must like that guy. He likes that guy better.
Yeah, but he was on his staff, though, wasn't he, at some point?
I'm not sure. I think he just liked that guy better.
It could be.
Now, the Riverdale and the Poppy coach now were on the staff.
Right.
But I think he just liked the Treasure Coast guy better.
Or he convinced them to do it this way for sure. So, again, these state semifinal games, last year, a lot of excitement coming into the Buchholz game. Their quarterback was like, a little bit of a one-man show, running around, making plays. You even said
Superman.
You said he's like, he'll run back 20 yards to go get 40 the other way. He'll run 100 yards to make 10.
One of the best high school players we ever played against.
Yeah, and just ridiculous how this is. But, so there's always that bit of excitement. Our game's going to be exciting, but let's not forget, we've got, you got Booker at Cocoa for a state semifinal over on the East Coast, and then Cardinal Moon, he plays North Florida Christian in their state semifinals. So 3 area teams in state semifinals, all of which are going to be, hopefully well attended by their fan base and the community at large. And also, it'll be exciting football to the level of being local, not in Tallahassee or in Fort Lauderdale or Orlando. This is as exciting as it can happen. And in this area,
well, Booker's not local.
Well, you understand, but it's
at Cocoa.
But they're going to. They're going to shove those off. They go to Cocoa, and it's going to be an exciting thing. And you would imagine that. We know our fan base. We talk about how good our fan base travels. I think for a state semifinal game, everybody goes. They should be going at least because there's not these things don't happen, 1, 2, 3 all the time. Booker probably facing the toughest task amongst everybody as far as the matchup's concerned. Being a 7 seed, having 3 upsets in a row, beating the 3 seed, then beating beating Lemon Bay, and then going ahead and beating Bishop Faroe, which was a very highly ranked team at the time. To do what they did, they're sort of going to be the one that probably has the travel and what goes along with all those different things.
Francis, are we going to pull the archives up where I named all 3 of us in the regional, winning the region? I mean, that's got to be worth something.
We need to do that because we can make sure. Because I know I should have everything written down.
I don't think you named those. I named them.
I know that when I was it might have been not with you, but I was with John Reynolds from SNN, and I think I might have said it then at the time. So that might have been before.
We need to pull it up. We need to get a TikTok made about it.
But it's we talked about this a little bit in the coaches show. It's cool that these other schools are there to do this. It's a fun time, and like I said, I think that it lends itself to. I was mentioning this last week with Josh Hunter. I said, there's been times where different areas have these runs. Back in the day, Pensacola had a run, and then the Melbourne, Titusville guys had runs, and all the different Miami's consistently had runs, but they're good.
They're on one now.
Yeah, and so they've been on one for 30 years. It seems like. But the thing is that. When you see this, it reflects a little bit now that everybody's sort of having a little bit of a run, and that sort of is good because, think about it. A lot of the teams that are from this area are in our region. You think about it, our region is stacked with teams, whereas the 3S I think it's Port Charlotte and Parish Community, and then 2S has a few, but there's a lot of them. But it's good to see that there's representation from the area. It really makes it a pretty cool weekend of football.
Yeah, it'll be fun to get the paper on Saturday.
Oh yeah,
see what happens.
Well, and of course, then if you don't get the paper, you're going to be watching what people are tweeting and sending out there because it's fun. I actually one of the things is fun after our games are over on Friday night to kind of look and see what's going on other places. Because you can't not be a fan of high school football if you do what you do.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're a fan of it. So when you know there's a game, like, how's so-and-so doing? And you'll hear some report where it's like, they got the ball and they just scored and so-and-so did
last
this.
Week, I had someone over my shoulder like, hey, the score is this at this game and the score is this at this game. And, like, they said, hey, it's final. DeLand won.
Right.
And we're just kicking off the ball for the second half. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, how was the game over?
Right.
And we're just seriously just starting the third quarter and
that tells you how fast
because they're both running the single wing.
Right.
That ball never. I guess the ball never got in the air. I don't know. So I think it was raining there too.
But you have legit 12-minute quarters.
Yeah.
It's not
that's why I told our team today. I was like, listen, this game's going to go by really, really fast. Like we're not going to have a whole lot of room for error.
Right.
It's going to happen fast. These quarters are going to be over quick. The game's going to be over quick. Like it's going to happen a little faster than it normally happens.
Right. And again, that's you look around and you're like, what with the first time out of anything is the water break.
Yeah.
In the first quarter, you're like, well, they're already there, and that kind of thing can really make it. And again, that puts pressure a lot of times on other teams when all of a sudden you're like, well, you look at the scoreboard and it's like, God, the quarter's over already, and we got only 3 more to go or 2 more to go. So there's a lot to be said about that. So yeah, again, Friday night, Powell Davis Stadium, 7:30. Ticket sales.
They're selling Thursday, 3 to 5.
Okay, so make sure you do that
at the ticket booth.
Yeah,
and then other than that, you're just going to show up. Show up early.
Yeah, no doubt. And like I said, we are pretty fortunate to have a good amount of parking on campus. Yep. So don't be afraid to get on campus and get parked. But again,
anybody from DeLand listening, you need to tell your people to get there early because
We will be there early.
It's been known. We've had a line and wrapping around the gym,
right?
Where it's the line is happening all the way up through halftime.
Yeah, if the gates open at a certain time, the line has formed.
Yes.
So you better. So that's the thing. So being there earlier, again, you're talking about fantastic weather.
Coach Shannon sold tickets last week. He said when he showed up, there was a huge line for the pre-sale.
Yeah, nobody. Our fans do not mess around. They're going to get their tickets and they're going to get there early and they're going to get their spot. And you see, a lot of times you watch the crowd comes in, but they're a good portion of them there by the time you guys are starting your warm-ups.
Yeah.
You start seeing the place fill up, and that's what you're talking 45 minutes to an hour ahead of time sometimes before kickoff. So that'll be something to be there. So again, if you get there out there early, and again, if you're a fan of a Booker or Cardinal Mooney, same thing applies, man. Get there early and get into it. This is something that will be absorbed. The feel of it, the excitement of it, it's palpable. You can feel what's going on, and both teams are going to be there and be ready to go. And I don't know how you, but do you even have to really sort of get anybody sort of fired up, or do you look in their eyes and see that they're ready to go? They know the team knows that this is big. This is a big deal.
I mean, I'm not really that. I'm not the rah-rah guy anyway. I mean,
right.
I think
focus maybe too.
We're going to focus and try not to, try not to be anxious, and we're going to. I don't think I ever have to fire our guys up.
No,
I mean,
you shouldn't.
The way they're worked, the way we work them, and how much time they put in and effort they put in, it really is not ever called for. I mean, you got to remind them they're young adults, so you got to kind of remind them like, hey, we got to be locked in and we got to match people's intensity
right
when they show up. Like, don't think you're going to just roll your helmet out and this game's going to be won just because other people before you have won it. Like, that gives us no points. Like,
right.
And we did it one time this year.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that speaks for itself. You
right.
know? So they did it. They did it to themselves.
Right.
Right. And I'm part of it because
sure.
I allowed it to happen.
Right.
But it's already happened to us, so I don't think it's going to happen again.
Launching pad loss, you can say you learned your lesson a little bit, and we always say that. You don't want to say that, but there's sometimes that's what happens. Like, oh, what do you know? This is what it takes.
Hey, it's 28-0. We might want to play.
Yeah, we might want to get this stuff figured out. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. With that, we'll take our first break of the night here on the podcast and come back and talk a little bit about some things that are going around in the state of Florida with our college football teams, because obviously the season just wrapped up, regular season. Now you've got some playoff championship games that Florida State will be in the one. Nobody else, I think, in the areas or in the state is doing that. But we'll talk a little bit about the state of the union, so to speak, for college football, and then we'll talk a little bit after that about the end of an era with this year's championship format, moving into the next year with the new championship format for the NCAA. We'll talk about how we feel about leaving this and going to the next situation, and maybe we won't be talking about whether if Alabama beats Georgia, Alabama gets in.
Right.
So we'll see about that. With that, we'll be back here on the John Peacock. I said the wrong thing for the first time.
941 Sports.
941 Sports Zone. So we're 941 Sports Zone. Be right back here. Thank you to Douglas Jeep, and thank you to Truly Nolan. Be right back.
Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram is excited to announce Black Friday savings all month long during the Black Friday sales event. Get a great deal on the new Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cab from only $369 per month. Or drive a new Jeep Renegade Latitude from only $319 per month. Drive a new Jeep Grand Cherokee from only $399 per month. Get Black Friday savings all month long during the Black Friday sales event going on now at Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice. Who has Black Friday savings all month long? Douglas does!
And welcome back to the live edition of the 941 Sports Zone from Bogies, but sponsored by Douglas Jeep and Truly Nolan. Truly Nolan with the What's Bugging Me segment of the 941 Sports Zone. And, Coach, I kind of indicated that you and I had talked a little bit about before getting on the podcast about what's the scenario, you being an Alabama fan, if Alabama was to beat Georgia, do they get into the four-team playoff that currently is the NCAA playoff system? And I said, absolutely. You're the SEC champion with one loss. You beat, Georgia's loss is Georgia's loss.
I just don't know how you do it.
Again,
we got too many undefeated teams.
Yeah, but again, I think if Georgia goes down, you have what at that point? If Washington wins out, Michigan wins out, and Florida State wins out, then if they're going to keep the undefeated teams in there, I think you got to go because Oregon gets. If Washington's undefeated, that means Oregon has 2 losses.
Right.
They're gone. Okay. Is Texas
what if Oregon
loss,
wins and Alabama wins?
Well, then you really have something to think about because do you then go to the eye test, which there's still an eye test with all this stuff, and look at how well Florida State would have beaten Louisville after they kind of had I get it, as a backup quarterback, they did not play well or dominantly, let's just say, against Florida. And Florida's legitimately, they're 5-7. They're not like, something happened. That's as good as they're going to be. They're 5-7 team. Talent, coaching is all 5-7 for Florida. And Florida State did not have a great showing. Previous to that, they were down to North Alabama, and they haven't really had they've had some little struggles here and there. So they've been undefeated, but they're not. Nobody has ever said, "Hey, let's give Florida State some run at being number 1." They've been firmly at that 4, 5, 6 level.
I just don't see them ever not taking an undefeated team.
So,
and I don't see them not taking Georgia with 1 loss out of the last 30.
So the thing would be that you would, if you're saying that, then Georgia's in, and the 3 undefeateds are in, and Georgia lost their last game in the so no SEC champion. You're the SEC champion, and you're not in the playoffs.
I don't know.
So that's going to be the real indicator. How important is that championship game? Again, let's say.
I mean, obviously, I think you got to put Alabama in front of Georgia if they win it.
I could argue this. Let's say Alabama had 3 losses, okay, but they won the West and they come out and beat Georgia. I could see Georgia being in there and Alabama not getting in because they have 3 losses. But if they come out and match it up evenly, I think it's kind of hard to kind of do that. But
it's true.
We'll talk about that a little bit more after we talk a little bit about what's happening in the state of Florida. I mentioned earlier. Florida State undefeated going into the ACC championship game against Louisville. Louisville just lost to Kentucky, so they now a 2-loss team, and I'm sure Florida State was a little bit down about that because they wanted to have that nice high-ranked win for themselves.
I feel like every year coming into the last week, everyone's talking about this, like, oh, what if we have all this? What if we have all that? And everything always like,
it worked out.
Yeah.
We
talked about that for nothing. Washington lost,
Right.
Alabama lost, and so it all kind of
worked itself out. Yeah, you're right, and it usually does, and that's always been sort of like if you're the committee or the NCAA in particular, you kind of a sigh of relief that something didn't really jumble it up or mess it up. However, this year I don't think it would matter. It might even be something that works to their advantage, saying, "Oh, well, guess what? We figured it out." Because next year we started something different, which is what we'll talk about.
But you could legitimately say, like, all right, well, you got Washington, you got Michigan, Florida State, and Alabama, and all in the and Georgia's over here playing in whatever bowl.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's nuts.
I know it is crazy, no doubt. Yeah. Talking about some other teams, so Florida State with a big game, a win, could and like you said, maybe should get them into the playoff system. You've got go back to Miami down year, really fell apart. Miami did after that non-kneeling down play where they handed off and fumbled. Seemed like their season was on a
quarterbacks in the portal today.
Yep, the Van Dyke, the guy who was the starter at the beginning of the year. The other quarterback's hurt with his gruesome injury against Florida State. So Miami, their Coach Cristobal's not really sort of got that thing going where he wanted it to go. And that one particular incident, it's amazing how one thing can kind of turn your season around. I'm not saying it's the only reason, but it really seemed to be the catalyst to them sort of having a mediocre finish to their season. UCF, I mentioned them because they've been sort of the team that's been kind of butting their heads up against being like the number 2 team in the state, and probably are right now based on their record and what they've done. But again, they look like an off year for them too, now playing in the Big 12. And I think there's a little bit of a, oh, yeah, this is what it's like kind of moment because
I think they got hot and cold. They were hot and cold throughout the year. Yeah.
And what happens is, and you can attest to this, there's an attrition rate, a wearing down
no
when
doubt.
you play against a higher level of competition.
And you have to have a plan for that.
Yeah. And Malzahn is the guy. He should know it. He's in the SEC all those years. But it's hard to get others. You say, well, we had a tough game. We beat, let's say you played Kansas State. We beat them. And then next week you're playing, Tulsa. Or what? I'm not nothing to pick on Tulsa, but it's picking out of the hat. And they're not nearly the talent level that maybe Kansas State was. But now when you're in the Big 12, Kansas State goes to Oklahoma, goes to Oklahoma State, goes to whatever, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, so this is what it's like to play a really good team every week.
Yeah, every week you got to line up.
Yeah, so I think that's been their learning lesson. Let me ask you a question. USF, obviously, really, really down for a few years, and going through a few coaching changes. It seems like they've seen this. Maybe they've found their stride a little bit.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. I think that big improvement this year. They made a bowl game, correct?
I think so.
I saw Weston Wolf post something about a bowl game, going to play one more game. So that's huge.
Yeah.
For the first year, like, hey, that's huge. We're going to a bowl game. Florida's not going to a bowl game.
No.
When's the last? I mean,
Miami's not going either.
Or when's the last time Florida's not gone to a bowl game?
17.
17.
They had an off year.
What about before that?
It's been a long time. Yeah, let's say it's been a long time.
So I think that's really big for USF. That's really big for Coach Gullish. Probably good for big for recruiting.
That's what I was going to ask you. So the kids talk about stuff, obviously. But is USF become more of a in the chatter, let's say, or more legitimate as an option? I mean, they're up the road. Obviously, they've always been an option, but if somebody says, "Hey, USF,"
they're getting a stadium on campus,
right.
So there's a lot of things happening there.
So they're selling a product that is performed well on the field and a product that's going to be even more on campus oriented. Which there's something to it. I think UCF got way better
with
an on-campus stadium.
No, I agree. I think that'll be really big for them. It'll be big for students participating in.
Sure.
As far as all that stuff goes, so that'll be really big for them.
And if you're on campus at USF, you're a football player, and now you don't have to go down a couple miles on the road. It's right there.
It's that's where all the fraternities and sororities they walk to the game, and when I was at Georgia Southern, that's where all the fraternities and sororities were. It was all like that stadium was surrounded by it. In Florida, it's all right there, right? Everyone walks there.
And when you're done with the game, you walk out of the stadium and you walk to your dorm.
Yeah.
And there's so much more to that atmosphere. Yeah. So now you can. And again, I'm not saying you couldn't sell that before. But now you can sell. Hey, this is like everybody else's atmosphere.
Yep.
We're not some team in the middle of a city that we're sort of borrowing a stadium so you guys can take a bus ride there. And it's a little, sterile.
You don't have any of your branding in the whole.
Right.
It'll change everything with USF.
No doubt. Again, we took Miami again a little bit down. USF, UCF, University of Florida, 5-7. Fired 2 coaches just yesterday. A guy who was a good recruiter and a guy who came with as a co-coordinator on the defensive side and defensive line coach. Maybe forced to do a little changes because, heck, you really fell apart defensively the last half of the year because you were playing very good defense prior to maybe the Georgia game, and then all of a sudden the last so many games you had a 700-yard game against LSU would give up yardage like never seen before. Jaden Daniels maybe won the Heisman that night against Florida, and then you come the next week and Missouri blows your doors off too on the offensive side against your defense. So some things had to change. But Billy Napier, he's obviously, by not making a bowl game, losing all the practices. The guy got some recruits coming in, but going to be on the hot seat in a very, very tough situation next year with probably the hardest schedule Florida's ever had and probably the hardest schedule in the country next year.
Yeah.
So we're going to see what happens there. So State of the Union is this. Florida State is way higher than everybody else right now from a record perspective where they stand, and the rest are all trying to figure it out, sort of all flirting with that 500 mark as far as their wins and losses are concerned. So you would expect better in a talent-rich state like the state of Florida. I'll ask you one more question about recruiting. I'm very surprised, irregardless of what the rankings are for kids from Missouri and Texas, and I get all that. Why so much that they don't want to spend an enormous amount of time recruiting the state of Florida? Where the big brands want to go nationally to find an offensive tackle in North Carolina and a defensive tackle in New Jersey. And I get that that's part of the process, but wouldn't you think that you would want to get 85 to 90% of your players from the state of Florida based on how much talent there is here?
Well, didn't they used to?
They did. I mean, you name the greatest players from Miami that played at Miami, Florida and Florida State. And
well,
I'll bet you 90% of them
when you
Florida.
look at Florida's roster from their last national championship. I mean, how many kids do you think were not from Florida?
On Urban Meyer's team, I would probably say a core of them. You
think a quarter of them?
No, I said maybe a little bit more than that, because he had guys like Aaron Hernandez from Connecticut. He had Percy Harvin from Maryland, I believe he was from. You had Jaden, what's his name, Joe Hayden from somewhere else.
Georgia.
Right. So you had several guys, but I still think that some of those splash players, but I think the core of the team is Florida-based.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Like big time.
Well, he recruited 7 guys from Lakeland's team. I mean, just said, take you 7 guys.
Right.
And, and that's what he
from
did.
That's from one recruiting class where you can only have 25 guys.
Right.
And he took 7 from one team in Florida.
Right.
Yeah. So I think way more than a quarter.
Okay.
I'm sorry, there was way less than a quarter that weren't from Florida. I mean,
Right.
I think you named some guys, but those are big name guys that you kind of knew. But I think the big time majority of the players were from Florida.
Right. And I think that's.
Is it not that way now?
Well, it always seems as though when you're talking about the class, whatever class you have, that a lot of it is predicated on, hey, we got the defensive end from Starkville, Mississippi, or we got this guy from Opelika, or Alabama, or something like that, or something. And I get that and again, I'm always like, how. With I guess there's always recruiting services and different scouts or whatever. What do you depend on? But man, it seems like a lot of work. Why wouldn't you just saturate, the 941 area?
Yeah, a lot of guys get away. I mean, look at you can look at our team, like our Damon Wilson's at Georgia,
right?
Elliott Washington's at Penn State. So those guys, why they let him out of the state.
Who's the last guy that you put guys in college all the time?
Malachi went to Tennessee.
Who's the last guy who went to Florida? Clay Burton. I mean,
Clay or Amari Phillips.
Yeah, and so you look at that, you say, okay, well, what's going on? And look, it's not easy to figure out if Venice or Miami Columbus or DeLand is in the state semifinals year after year or wherever they're at. You'd think you'd be like, maybe we should go down there a lot more and see what's going on down there.
Yeah.
Because we always hear the same thing about some of the things. Go win. Go be a winner. Go figure out how to do that. Go win a championship.
Yeah.
And if it's happening somewhere, why would you not go recruit those places that are doing that?
Sometimes it's really not as important as they make it to be.
Well, again, I understand that, but they're judging people on their talent. And but again, there's talent all over the place. But you would think you'd be saturating a certain area. Look, even the city of Miami, we've talked about the talent that's all over the place, right down there. You should have somebody living down there, just recruiting.
No doubt.
Just get a condo and stay down there.
How many people from Miami go to different states?
Absolutely, all the time you see it, all the time. And it used to be funny. I mean, Bear Bryant, back in Alabama days, said the sleeping giant back when he was back in the 70s is the University of Florida, because once they figure out how to recruit their own kids, we're in trouble. Because they go pluck guys all the time over there. And if you look at Division I football, I would bet you that if you're watching games, there's pretty much a good chance that
several
that's east of the Rockies is probably playing on one of those teams.
Several.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing I just don't quite understand. And I think if you put a more of an emphasis on that, you'd be even if you drew a circle around the Southeastern Conference or in the ACC or whatever in that southeast quadrant of the country. If you stayed right there, I think you'd do all right.
No doubt.
All right, we'll take one more break. Actually, you know what? Let's keep going because I want to just keep on with this. So go back to the championship, conference championships, and the discussion on the playoff system. Obviously, I'm going to tell you that I think that the new system is going to work a lot better because these talks about who wouldn't and wouldn't get in is out the window. And I think if you're number 13 in a 12-team playoff, well, tough. You probably shouldn't have been 13.
I think once they go 12-team playoffs, you're going to see some teams that are ranked or seeded 10, 9, 10, 11 win it.
Yeah.
And that would have never been in it before.
Isn't that what you want, though?
Yeah.
Look at March Madness, what it's become. It's only that way because of the upsets.
Because I think some teams that maybe have lost a game early on, now they're playing their best football, and they're better than everybody, don't get in. Maybe they lost too early.
It's kind of sad to say this, but so Florida State undefeated. There should be no question that they're in the playoffs. Right. But the fact of the matter that an injury to their quarterback might be the reason why they don't get picked to get there.
Right.
Is I feel sorry for the other 21 starters on that football team who are now, because it doesn't look right, but you won all your games.
Right.
You're not going to get in. This in some way eliminates that beauty contest that it is now. There's still a little bit of that. Well, they're a little bit nicer in their record. No, man, the teams that are really good, the Oregons, the Texases, the Missouris, right down to number 12, whoever that one may be at this point, they're those solidly good. Really good. There's not this year. While Georgia's on a 28-game winning streak or whatever they're on right now, they don't look as dominant as they had the last couple of years. Would you say that?
No, yeah, you're right. No, okay. You're exactly right. So they've been in some games where they were down against South Carolina at halftime. They were in a one-score game or close to a one-score game against Georgia Tech this past weekend. Yeah. They've been in some contests that were a lot closer than you'd think.
So in that situation, now you look at it and say, instead of saying there's one or two good teams, there might be 8 legitimate teams that could win the national championship this year. But guess who's getting there? 4 of them.
Right.
And now you've got 12 from next year. And I think that the system itself it should have been. It's almost silly that they couldn't get to this conclusion earlier. Sooner.
I think it has to do a lot to do with money in the bowl games and all that stuff. So
that's all. It's Tostitos. It's Cheetos or Cheez-Its or.
Yep.
Now I saw something today that I guess I don't know what game it is, but the Pop-Tarts is the sponsor.
And that'd be a good one to be in.
So listen, you know how good it is. The mascot, is going to be a Pop-Tart mascot at the game, and his whatever he's wearing, his costume, is edible. It's a giant Pop-Tart. You can actually eat it, and people are going to be eating the mascot. They're going to be eating it. It's true.
And the mascot's going to be naked at the
I don't know what it is, but they're going to be like a strawberry Pop-Tart, and they're going to be peeling off pieces of them. I don't know if they can score a touchdown. You could eat at the corner of his head, or I don't know what it is.
Right.
But it's an edible mascot, and I said that's unbelievable. I said there's a lot of things you can make edible. I would imagine it could be a big Cheeto or whatever it is.
Maybe it's huge.
It's got to be huge. But imagine how heavy it would be. It's like imagine making a Pop-Tart this big into a costume. Right. It's going to weigh a lot. The guy's got to be. And somebody said today, what if it's hot? Does it start to cook? What is it?
Melts.
It melts. I don't know what happens. So so it's going to be. Wherever that is, I'm going to be watching the Pop-Tart. I'm going to find that Pop-Tart and see what happens.
If it's in Florida, we might go.
It's possible. Yeah, just see what happens to the Pop-Tart. But again, going back to the conversation, I think we both agree that next year's system bodes well for a really, really exciting. So it'll start probably the week after next. And you've got, I think the way they're going to do is that the 4 top seeds are going to bye, and then
more football games better, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And better games.
It doesn't mean that the bowl games aren't going to be watched or attended.
Yeah.
That's still there. It's still a game to watch.
That's some really good football games too.
Absolutely. I think the matchups get better too on the lower bowls. You're not having a bowl game where you have some team that that's a one-loss team, and half their team doesn't want to play in it, and they're playing somebody they're going to knock around, and it's a boring game.
Right.
I think the games will be better as well, so it'll help out with that. So now we'll take our break. Take our final break tonight and come back to do our truly known What's Bugging Me segment, and maybe a prediction or two. We tend to like to do predictions when we're together, so we'll do the same thing. Back here at Bogies and the 941 Sports Zone right after this.
Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram is excited to announce Black Friday savings all month long during the Black Friday sales event. Get a great deal on the new Ram 1500 Big Corn Crew Cab from only $369 per month. Or drive a new Jeep Renegade Latitude from only $319 per month. Drive a new Jeep Grand Cherokee from only $399 per month. Get Black Friday savings all month long during the Black Friday sales event going on now at Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice. Who has Black Friday savings all month long? Douglas does!
And we're back here at Bogies in the 941 Sports Zone. Once again, thank you, Douglas Jeep. And thank you very much, Truly Known, for sponsoring this segment, which is our What's Bugging Me segment. And Coach Peacock, I'll let you go first.
What's bugging me? I'm going to have to go with the single wing offense and Rick Darlington.
Yeah. I can
bugs me
totally
that
understand.
he came back just to play me. And it bothers me that he runs a single wing offense.
You think this? Do you think that if Coach Larry Shannon was on, that this would bug
Oh,
you?
it would. It
would be
definitely be
infuriating me.
It would definitely be what was bugging Larry, for sure. I think it should be illegal. You shouldn't be able to do it in the playoffs. There's no place
making
for
up
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, that I'm sure probably one thing that may be keeping everybody up a little bit is that you're seeing all this different stuff. What is he concocting right now?
He's definitely got something. Yeah. No, he's a trick play guy too. That's another thing. He's probably gonna have 3 or 4 trick plays. You're like, what the heck was that? Like we don't have to deal with enough already.
Right.
So that's really been bugging me the last couple of days.
I gotcha.
It's actually been bugging me the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
because I knew it.
Here he comes.
Here
it comes.
When I looked at it, I was like, we're gonna be home versus DeLand. I'm like, I would much rather travel and go play somewhere else.
Right.
I'd much rather be playing Lakeland.
yeah, because it's right. Because it's a tough
at
deal
Lakeland or wherever you want us to play.
Yeah, it's tough to deal with that. I'm sure, no doubt about that. So obviously, I would say one thing real quick. That's a side note, an extra. What's bugging me? What's bugging me was going to the Florida State game and Florida being up by 12, and then with great field position, and we decided to run a double reverse.
With a loss. I was like, why did I was thinking I was watching like, why'd they just do that? They're up by 12 points.
I looked at our good friend Doug Porter was sitting next to me at the game, and I looked at Doug and I said, we just got a safety. They just made a bad decision on the kickoff to get the ball back. They're returning inside their 40-yard line. I'm like, I said the words, and it was my probably jinx that I said, now the swamp is back where it should be. Watch this, and all of a sudden some out of this world play that had no chance of making it at all.
It lost a 10.
And they ended up getting an intentional grounding penalty because there was nobody open or whatever.
Yeah, I was like, why did they just do that?
Oh my God! And I was like, and you could actually, when you know how you're at games and you go like, what just happened? The energy just went, boom! It just got sucked out of the stadium.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, what just happened? And then you start to see panic on the next two calls, and I'm like, that might be the game. That's a game changer, and it was from that point forward.
I remember
Florida scored 3 points.
I forgot about that when you just brought that up. I was just walking into the room and I was like, why would you do that right now?
Because you had them on their heels, and
just run it down their throat right now.
Even if you're going to make a play, whatever it may be, you could do play action and throw a post if you wanted to go deep.
Yeah.
Because they're going to jump because the run is going like crazy. So it was hard. But what really is bugging me goes back to what we just talked about. That it took this long to get to a playoff system in college football that actually makes sense. Okay, like I said, if you're the number 13 team in the country and you get outpointed by the 12th team, I'm not worried about your argument.
You think in 10 years they're going to be like, all right, we're going to 24?
Well, it's all going to depend on money, like you said before. And it's all going to depend on how long it takes to get it done. Do you if you turn the conference championships into legitimate play-in games? So that a 4-loss team can actually get in the playoffs if you win the conference championship.
All you got to do is just look at the FCS, right?
Yeah, they're all it's
that's 32 teams.
They make it work.
Yeah.
But again, if you want,
but they don't have all the bowl but just make each bowl or each round a.
Well, the lame argument that they didn't want to do this before because it was going to interfere with finals is hysterical. The fact that people actually bought into that.
Who bought into that?
I don't know, but somebody had to.
If that's the case, they wouldn't play basketball.
They were like, look at this over here. We got this. Yeah. No, exactly. Basketball plays on Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. They're playing all the time for so many weeks. Then they go play in a championship. That's Thursday, Friday, or Thursday, Saturday, or Friday. No, it doesn't. It's all ridiculous. It was just a money situation, and it comes down to that. So if money's there, and they can make it work around the bowls or the championship games, I think that it happens, and I think that becomes the play-in games in some way. So yeah, the fact that it took so long to get to where we're at is what's bugging me. I think it's ridiculous that it took that long that actually happened. So at least they figured it out. We're heading that way fast. With that, any predictions for tonight or for this week?
I'm predicting an Alabama win.
Okay. I can't argue with that at all. I mean, Georgia is. I mean, Alabama has found ways to win football games. Yeah. They've found ways. They've grown as a team with the quarterback and some things they've done, very rarely do you see a team figure it out mid-season, and they did. Yeah. And that's just a testament to Nick Saban and his staff being able to figure those things out. Prediction, Florida State loses to Louisville.
Could happen, yeah.
I think that's the one, and I think that's sort of I just think that Kentucky, sometimes when you lose the game to a rival and you kind of thought you weren't going to lose to a 5-6 Kentucky team, maybe Louisville comes out really hot to go, and Florida State has to struggle with a backup quarterback. Yep. So I think that's my prediction. With that, we're going to wrap up tonight's podcast. Thank you for being here. I know you're busy, super, super busy, so doing the podcast, maybe it was a little tension reliever.
Helps a little bit.
Yeah, you got to vent about.
That stuff off was bugging me.
That damn Rick Darlington coming back to a coaching. So, yeah, that was got it out of your system a little bit. So, again, thanks for doing that. So, you guys, again, thanks for watching live. And, again, if anybody wants to let anybody know, you can always watch it on YouTube, on the VSN, your webpage, right?
Well, the coaches show will be live Thursday on YouTube.
On the education channel, and YouTube as well. So you can do that as well. With that, for John Peacock, I'm John Mussone. Thank you for joining the 941 Sports Zone. See you here next week, probably from somewhere else. We'll have to see.
Hopefully not the dating table.
No, yeah. What are we doing afterwards? We go for ice cream after this?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah.
We may have to do that. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next time.